Squash is one of my favorite things to grow in the garden, and it's an amazing survival crop. Here's some tips if you want to grow it. When it comes to actually planting your squash, squash is not a frost-hardy plant, so you want to set it out only after your last risk of frost has passed, in a spot that gets full sun, and make sure you direct sow it. They need a lot of sunlight and they do not transplant well. They want to grow where they're planted. Make sure you are aware what kind of squash you are planting, whether it's a bushing or vining variety. When I say squash needs a lot of room, I am so serious. They can get enormous. If you don't have like 4 to 6 square feet of room to plant a squash plant, it's gonna get pretty crowded in your garden really fast. A really great way to maximize the space in your garden if you don't have a lot of room is some vertical growing. These cattle panel arches are a really incredible way to give the squash all of the support that it needs while not overrunning the rest of the garden. Plus, it is so beautiful when it's fully grown in, and it'll be a lot easier to manage your plant with it growing vertically like this. This is definitely great for vining varieties, but I feel like bushing varieties would really appreciate some form of support too. Squash plants are thirsty and hungry plants. When it comes to watering your plants, I recommend watering directly into the roots. They don't really like a lot of moisture building up on the leaves, and they're very susceptible to powdery mildew. So to avoid that, make sure you get in and water them consistently right to the root system. And when it comes to fertilizing, I use a water-soluble fertilizer that I make myself using comfrey. I mix it with water and I water it directly into the roots as well, about every 3 to 4 weeks. But once it actually starts producing fruit, about every 2 to 3 weeks. To keep your plant healthy throughout the season, do not be afraid to prune. Pruning is a really effective way to manage pests and diseases. If you see any yellowing leaves, do not be afraid to snip them off. Squashes are very tough plants. They can handle it. They will literally just put out more. Yellowing and dying leaves are good to prune off because they can host diseases and pests as well. Now, there aren't any signs of it on this plant, but if you see any leaves with powdery mildew, I would snip those off too. Otherwise, it's just gonna spread. Like I said before, squash plants can get pretty wild and they start setting out a ton of arms. If you don't necessarily have the room for it, it doesn't hurt to prune off any extra arms that you don't want to grow. This is obviously gonna help manage the overall plant, but it's also gonna help redirect energy to the places of the plant you actually want to focus that energy to, like flower production and fruit production. Also setting out arms down here that are gonna start growing into the walkway. I don't really want it to do that, and I'd much rather have it focusing its energy on the arms that I want growing here. So, bye! Here's another little arm that's starting to grow. Bye.